My parents taught us that love had a price, and that price was betrayal. They turned my brothers and sisters into undercover agents. The night I saw what they did to my baby sister, I grabbed her, and we ran. I never looked back. Half a year later, my folks got caught trying to take in more kids and landed in jail. Growing up, there was only one thing that earned praise in our house: snitching. That was the only currency that mattered. I was the middle kid out of four. The one people often forgot was even in the room. I always had this weird sense that I noticed things no one else did. My parents thought they had everything under control, but I was the one kid they completely misjudged. Take my older brother Liam, for example. That boy craved our dad's approval like it was oxygen. One day, it was just the two of us hanging out in my room, and I accidentally let a drop of cranberry juice fall on the beige carpet. I froze, just totally panicked. Instinct kicked in. I whipped off my t-shirt, spit on it, and started scrubbing like crazy, hoping to lift the stain before it set. But Liam had already dashed downstairs. A few seconds later, I heard him snitching. Someone spilled juice all over the carpet upstairs. Then he added, "He's so clumsy." That was all it took. I didn't hear the words, just the sound of my dad's heavy footsteps, and then the creak of the drawer opening. That meant one thing: he was reaching for the black leather whip. I didn't resist. Just laid face down on my bed, shoved a pillow in my mouth so my screams wouldn't echo through the house. One lash. 2. 3. I went to bed without dinner. While I sobbed into my blanket upstairs, I could hear Liam downstairs getting praised like some kind of hero. "You're such a responsible young man," my mom cooed, her voice echoing up through the floorboards. "My handsome boy," she added, glowing with pride. Dad chimed in with a booming, "I'm so proud of you." I was only 4 then. Liam was 6. That same year, our twin baby sisters were born. From that point forward, I wasn't just being raised by 2 parents, I was being watched by 5 walking surveillance cameras. My mom and dad gave the twins the exact same treatment they gave us. They played the role of perfect, doting parents until the girls turned 3. That's when the switch flipped. The affection dried up. No more sweet words. No more bedtime cuddles. Nothing unless they tattled on each other. By the time I hit 10, I had taken more beatings than I could keep track of. I got hit for not cleaning my room well enough, for leaving crumbs on my plate, for crying too loud, for wearing shirts that showed bruises. Meanwhile, my siblings got the belt maybe once or twice a year, tops. But all those punishments taught me one thing. I never wanted to be the one inflicting pain. So, even when I saw my siblings messing up, I kept my mouth shut. Heck, sometimes I even took the fall for them. In some ways, it made a difference. Liam and the twins always said they felt safest around me, but they never returned that loyalty. Not once. Because, truth be told, they loved our parents more than they ever loved me. Eventually, it became obvious I was the one getting punished the most. But instead of thinking, "Hey, maybe Liam's just trying to be good to us," they started treating me like the family screw-up. Suddenly, I could do nothing right. If I snored too loud and annoyed someone, my mattress would get taken away for the whole week. If I accidentally used Liam's cologne, I'd be banned from showering for 3 days. By the time I turned 18, my entire view of family was twisted. Watching people hug and laugh on TV just made me angry. I figured it had to be fake. I had spent so many years in survival mode that, when college came around, my GPA was a whopping 1.0. I barely got in through an open admission program. But I knew one thing without a doubt: I couldn't stand another minute under that roof. So I paid a classmate to let me crash on the floor of his dorm room. I remember feeling sick with nerves the week his parents came for Thanksgiving. My heart was racing constantly. I cleaned everything. Spoke only when spoken to. Tried to be perfect, just like I was trained to be. When the door knocked twice instead of once, I flinched and opened it slowly, bracing myself like I was about to get hit. But instead of a slap or a scream, his mom smiled and thanked me for opening the door so quickly. She even gave me a hug. I spent the rest of that night completely still, quiet, watching for any sign of trouble, ready to leap into action. But after his parents left, something unexpected happened. My friend didn't yell. He didn't curse me out or call me useless. He hugged me, said, "Thanks for being so kind to my parents." That's when it hit me how twisted my upbringing really was. The very next day, I got the phone call. It was my sister Riley, one of the twins. Her voice was so quiet, it was barely more than a breath. "Please help me." All Riley said before hanging up was, "I'm sorry." That was it. And just like that, the line went dead. My heart felt like it cracked clean in two. The very next morning, I jumped in my car and drove straight to our old house. I wasn't about to leave her there another second. When we made it back to my buddy's dorm, she lifted her shirt to show me the bruises, and my jaw nearly hit the floor. It was obvious what had happened. The moment I left, they needed someone else to take their rage out on. And Riley became the new target. I cleaned her up as best I could, patching the wounds, and she just kept saying sorry over and over. But I didn't hold any of that against her. Not her. Not any of them. All that anger I'd been carrying? It was aimed squarely at just two people, our parents. Ethan, my roommate, was a godsend. He didn't freak out or ask a million questions. He helped me set up a hidden little spot for Riley in the far corner of our room, behind his desk, just enough cover to avoid getting caught during room inspections. We took turns sneaking food out of the dining hall for her. For the first time in her life, Riley was able to sleep through the night without flinching at every sound. But that calm didn't last long. The next day, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At first, my parents tried playing it cool. "Liam, sweetheart, have you seen Riley? We're just so worried," my mom said in a voicemail that practically oozed fake concern. I ignored it. Then the tone shifted fast. "You better bring her home right now, or you're gonna regret it." My dad snapped in a message I didn't even finish before blocking both their numbers. That's when Caleb started calling. "Hey, little bro," he said, in that annoyingly fake calm voice. "Mom and Dad are really freaked out. Just let us know she's safe, okay? Nobody's mad." And for a split second, I almost bought it. Almost. But I'd spent years watching Caleb bend to whatever our parents told him to say. This was no different. Meanwhile, Riley was constantly on edge. Every knock on the door, every footstep in the hallway made her jump. She wouldn't even step outside, not once, not even to get fresh air. She curled up to sleep like she was bracing for another hit, even in her dreams. "What if they get the cops involved?" she asked me one night. "What if they say you kidnapped me?" I hadn't thought of that. Truth was, legally, she was still a minor. If they pushed it, I could get into serious trouble. But sending her back? Not a chance. I'd seen what they did to her. No way in hell was I letting that happen again. "We'll figure something out," I told her. I had no clue how, but I had to believe we'd find a way. The next day, while Riley was in the shower, Ethan pulled me aside. "Hey," he whispered, "my RA's starting to get suspicious. We can't keep her here much longer." I nodded, trying not to let the panic show on my face. We were out of options and flat broke. I had a part-time job at the campus coffee shop, but the paycheck barely covered ramen and instant soup. That night, while Riley tossed and turned on her makeshift mattress, I stayed awake trying to figure out a plan. I only knew one thing. I wasn't going to let those two monsters get their hands on my sister again, even if it meant risking everything. Over the next few days, I started asking around campus, trying to find anyone who had a little space to spare. Most people looked at me like I was nuts when I explained I needed a place for my sister to stay. Honestly, I couldn't blame them. It was a weird ask. Then, finally, I caught a break. I ran into Marina from my Psych 101 class. She mentioned she lived off campus with two roommates and they had a small storage room they never used. "It's not fancy," she warned. "You could maybe fit a twin bed and a little dresser in there." I almost cried. "That's perfect," I told her. "Seriously, thank you." We moved Riley that weekend. Ethan helped us haul what little we had, a couple bags of second-hand clothes, a cheap twin mattress I snagged off Facebook Marketplace, and a plastic bin for her things. Marina's roommates, Harper and Jade, were way cooler about it than I expected. I told them the truth. Riley came from a messed-up home and needed somewhere safe. "My stepdad was a nightmare too," Jade told her while helping set up the room. "I get it." It was the first time Riley looked calm. Not totally okay, but less on edge. Being around other girls helped. It made her feel like she wasn't completely alone anymore. I still crashed on the floor at Ethan's place, but I spent every free minute at Marina's apartment, keeping Riley company. For a little while, things felt manageable. I picked up more shifts at the coffee shop. Riley even started making a few bucks doing homework for Marina and her roommates. We were barely scraping by, but we were getting by. Then Caleb showed up. I was in the middle of a shift, grinding out orders behind the counter, when I looked up, and there he was. Standing like he owned the place, dressed in his overpriced North Face jacket and wearing that same smug look he always had. "Hey, little brother," he said like it was any other day. "Mind if we talk?" I glanced over at my manager. He gave me the nod to take a break. I slipped off my apron and motioned for Caleb to follow me to a quiet corner table, away from anyone who might overhear. So, what do you want? I asked, making no effort to hide the irritation in my voice. He let out one of those heavy, dramatic sighs like he was preparing for a big speech. Look, I know you're pissed. And yeah, I get it. But this whole thing with Riley, it's getting out of hand. Good, I said, not blinking. They should be losing their minds. Do you even know what she was doing after you left? He asked, fidgeting. They said she started breaking rules. Acting out. You know how she gets. I stared him down, not even trying to hide how disgusted I was. I saw the bruises, Caleb. Everywhere. You know why they hurt her? Because she wouldn't snitch on Tessa. That's what we're calling love now. They're still our parents, he said quietly. They're tough, yeah, but they love us. They're just trying to keep us in line. I let out a bitter laugh. That what you tell yourself so you can sleep at night? That scaring your kids into silence and beating them senseless is just tough love? Please. His face went stiff. You've always been the dramatic one. Always turning everything into some victim story. I'm not being dramatic, I said flatly. I'm protecting my sister. She's underage, Liam. What you're doing. It's technically kidnapping. And there it was. The threat I knew was coming. I leaned in closer, kept my tone calm even though my pulse was racing. Let them call the cops. I'll show them Riley's injuries. I'll tell them everything. Is that what they want? To put all their secrets on display? That shook him. His tough guy look slipped for just a second. Just let me talk to her, he said, softening his voice. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I shook my head. Not happening. Tell Mom and Dad to back off. We're done being their emotional and physical punching bags. I stood to head back to work, but Caleb reached out and grabbed my arm. They know where you work now, he said quietly. They're going to find her. You can't keep this going forever. I yanked my arm free. Watch me. The moment my shift ended, I bolted for Marina's place. I had to warn Riley Caleb knew where I was working. When I got there, she was sitting on the couch, and Tessa was with her. My other sister looked up, her eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. Hey, Liam. I stopped cold in the doorway. What are you doing here? Before Tessa could say a word, Riley jumped in. She just came to see me. She was worried. I glanced between them, alarm bells going off in my head. The timing was way too perfect. Caleb corners me at work, and now Tessa suddenly shows up at the apartment? How'd you find us? I asked Tessa, eyes narrowing. She looked down, fiddling with her fingers. I followed you after one of your classes. I only wanted to make sure Riley was okay. Something about her story didn't sit right. I pulled Riley aside into the small storage room that now served as her bedroom. Did you tell her where we were staying? I whispered. Riley looked panicked. No, I swear. She just knocked on the door about an hour ago. Said she missed me. I peeked back out into the living room and saw Tessa texting someone. My gut twisted. This is a setup, I said under my breath. Caleb showed up at my job today, and now Tessa's here? They're working together. Riley's eyes widened. What do we do? Pack your stuff. We're leaving. Now. As Riley quickly shoved her things into a backpack, I walked back to the living room and sat across from Tessa. She angled her phone away from me, subtle, but I caught it. Are you texting? I asked, trying to sound casual. Just a friend, she said, a little too fast. I nodded toward her phone. Can I see? She blinked. Why? Don't you trust me? There was fake offense in her tone, but her nervousness was showing. No, I said flatly. Not really. Her face dropped. She knew I was onto her. They're just really scared, Liam, she said. They just want her home. Yeah, so they can keep beating her? Not happening. It's not like that, Tessa insisted. They said they're sorry. They said they'd change. For half a second, I wanted to believe her. Just like old times. But then her phone lit up with a new text. I caught a glimpse. Mom, is she coming? Dad's waiting in the car. My blood ran cold. They were outside. You need to go, I told Tessa, standing up fast. Now. Liam, please. I said now. I rarely raise my voice, but when I do, people feel it. Tessa flinched, then grabbed her coat and headed for the door. They're going to find her eventually, she said over her shoulder. You can't hide her forever. As soon as the door clicked shut behind her, I fired off a warning text to Marina, told her not to come home yet. Then I grabbed Riley and her bag. We slipped out through the back of the apartment building just in time to see my dad's car creeping up toward the front entrance. That night, we crashed at a dingy motel out near the edge of town, paid for with what little was left in my bank account. Riley cried herself to sleep while I sat by the window, eyes scanning the parking lot like a guard dog. "Why won't they just let us be?" she asked between sobs. I didn't have a good answer. Maybe it was about control. Or maybe they were terrified we'd expose everything they'd done. Either way, one thing was clear. We couldn't keep running like this forever. The next morning, I called in sick and sat cross-legged on the motel bed, using the slow-as-molasses Wi-Fi to search for options. I found a website for teen runaways. It had legal resources, information about emancipation, and stories from other kids who'd escaped toxic homes. Turns out, at 16, Riley might be able to file for legal independence, especially if we could prove the abuse. But that would mean going to court, showing her bruises, reliving everything in front of strangers. I wasn't sure she was ready for that. While I was reading, my phone buzzed. New number. Attached was a photo, me and Riley walking into the motel the night before. Underneath, it was a message. "We know where you are. Bring her home, or the police get involved." I turned the screen toward Riley. Her face went pale. "They're going to take me back," she whispered. "No, they're not," I told her, even though I had no clue how to make sure of that. We packed up and checked out immediately, then jumped on a bus heading back toward campus. I messaged Ethan, asking if we could crash on his floor one last time. He said yes, but warned me that his RA was asking too many questions. When we got near campus, I spotted a security officer standing at the dorm entrance, talking to someone who looked suspiciously like my mother. I turned us around fast. "This way," I muttered, steering Riley across the street. "They're watching the building." "They're everywhere," she said, voice shaking. I spotted the library across the quad. "In here," I said, guiding her through the doors. We found a quiet spot on the third floor, tucked behind some shelves, and settled in like ghosts. Riley pretended to read while I called Marina to ask if it was safe to come back. No answer. Next, I tried Jade. "Hey," she said when she picked up. "Weird question, but did you tell your parents where you were staying?" My stomach dropped. "No." "What?" "They showed up here this morning, looking for you and Riley." "What did you say?" "Nothing." Marina threatened to call the cops. "They left, but they weren't happy." I thanked her and ended the call. Another door slammed shut. By the time evening rolled around, we were out of luck and nearly out of money. I had maybe $20 to my name. Not enough for even the cheapest motel. Ethan texted that room checks were happening that night, so that option was gone too. We ended up spending the night in a 24-hour laundromat, rotating who got to nap on the uncomfortable plastic seats. It was cold, bright, and smelled like detergent and desperation. When I opened my eyes the next morning, Riley was gone. My heart nearly stopped. I shot to my feet, then spotted her just outside the window, pacing and talking into her phone. When she came back inside, her face was hard to read. "Who was that?" I asked, trying not to sound like I was freaking out. "Tessa," she said quietly. "She wants to meet. Just the two of us." "No way. Absolutely not. It's a setup." Riley sat down beside me. "What if it's not?" "She said she wants to help. That she's sorry. She said that last time too, remember? Right before she brought them straight to us. She said Mom and Dad are at work. She just wants to talk." I saw it, the flicker of hope in Riley's eyes. That maybe, just maybe, one of our siblings was actually on our side. I understood that feeling all too well. I'd carried the same hope for years. "Fine," I said after a pause. "But I'm coming with you. And we meet in public." We agreed on a campus cafe, not the one I worked at. I made Riley promise to stay close the whole time, no exceptions. When we got there, Tessa was already waiting by the window, just like she said. No one else in sight. "Thanks for coming," she said as we sat down. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, like she hadn't slept in days. "I'm sorry about what happened yesterday. They made me do it." "Made you how?" I asked, not hiding the skepticism in my voice. She glanced at Riley, hesitating. "They said if I didn't help find her, they'd..." And then she stopped. "What do you mean, they'd?" I pressed, leaning forward. "They said they'd start treating me the way they treated you," Tessa whispered. And I was scared. I wanted to be furious. But the truth is, I knew that fear too well to blame her. "So why risk it now?" I asked. "Aren't you afraid of what they'll do if they find out you helped us?" "They don't know I'm here," she said. I told them I was going to the library. Then she reached into her backpack and pulled out a plain white envelope, handing it to me. "I brought this for you." I opened it and froze. Inside was a stack of cash, $180. "My birthday money," she explained. "I want you to use it for Riley." For whatever she needs. I stared at her, unsure what to say. After all the years of being betrayed by my own siblings, this small gesture felt unreal. There's more, Tessa added, lowering her voice. They're planning to report Riley as a runaway tomorrow. They've already spoken to the police. Riley's hand gripped mine tightly under the table. What about Liam? She asked. Are they saying he kidnapped me? Tessa nodded slowly. That's the story. They're telling everyone you've always been unstable, Liam. That you dragged Riley away. Manipulated her. Of course. They've been spinning that narrative about me for years, painting me as the problem child. Why stop now? We need to get ahead of this, I said, thinking aloud. We need to tell the truth, our side of it, before they poison everyone against us. But how? Riley asked. Who's going to believe us over them? I paused. We need proof. Pictures of what they did to you. Documentation. I already took some, Riley said quietly. Back when you first brought me to Ethan's dorm. I was scared no one would believe me once the bruises faded. Smart. Smarter than I'd been. Can we get witnesses? I asked. I could talk, Tessa offered. I've seen things. I could back you up. I looked at her for a beat. Would you really? You'd go against Mom and Dad like that? She hesitated, then nodded. I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of pretending I didn't see what was happening to you, and now to Riley. It's not okay. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt something crack open inside me. Hope. Maybe we weren't alone after all. As we were heading out of the coffee shop, my phone buzzed with a campus-wide alert. The subject line made my stomach drop. Campus Safety Bulletin. Missing Student Notice. I tapped it open. There it was, Riley's name, age, photo. A description of her as a missing minor, possibly accompanied by her older brother, who might be in need of intervention. They're turning the school against us, I muttered, holding up my phone so Tessa and Riley could see. Tessa covered her mouth, horrified. They didn't waste any time. We were running out of safe places fast. With Riley's face now sent to every phone and screen on campus, hiding wasn't going to cut it anymore. I thought back to that legal site I'd found. Maybe it was time to stop running and start fighting. We need help. Real help, I said. Someone who knows the system. Someone who can actually guide us through this. Like who? Riley asked. Then I remembered Dr. Alan Pierce, my psych professor. He once told our class he used to work with Child Protective Services before moving into teaching. If anyone could point us in the right direction, it was probably him. I sent him an email, kept it vague but urgent. Just said I needed to talk about a serious situation involving a minor. Within minutes, he replied, offering to meet that afternoon. I'm coming too, Tessa said when I told them the plan. I still wasn't sure I trusted her 100%, but an extra witness might help. Either way, we needed someone credible on our side. We spent the next few hours tucked away in a quiet section of the library, flinching at every footstep, convinced someone would recognize Riley from the alert. At 3 p.m., we made our way to Dr. Pierce's office. I stuck to side paths and back entrances and kept Riley's hood up the whole time. When we arrived, Dr. Pierce was already there, waiting just outside his door. He looked concerned, serious, but not alarmed. Liam, he said, waving us in quickly. I saw the alert about your sister. I'm guessing that's why you reached out. I nodded. Thank God he wasn't already on the phone with campus security. It's not what they're saying, I told him. We need help. For the next hour, we laid everything out. The years of abuse. How our parents encouraged betrayal. The punishments. The fear. The manipulation. Riley showed him the photos she'd taken, purple bruises, red welts, fading but still very real. Tessa backed us up, filling in gaps and sharing things she'd witnessed over the years. Dr. Pierce didn't interrupt once. Just sat there, listening, his face growing more serious by the minute. When we finally finished, he leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly, like he'd just taken in something heavy. What you're describing isn't just troubling, Dr. Pierce said, his expression grave. It's serious child abuse. And the fact that it's gone unnoticed for so long, that's disturbing. No one noticed because we were trained not to talk about it, I explained. And they were careful about where they left the bruises. Never in places people could easily see. He gave a slow, heavy nod. I believe you. And I want to help. But you need to know, the way you went about this, taking Riley without going through the proper channels, has made things more complicated. I didn't know what else to do, I admitted. I couldn't leave her there another day. I get that, he said gently. But now we need to act quickly, before the story they're telling gains traction. The first step is to file a formal report with Child Protective Services. That's going to open an investigation, right? I asked, bracing myself for the answer. Yes, he said. And typically, during that process, the child is returned to the home temporarily. I felt my stomach tighten. But, he continued, because of the evidence you've provided, especially the photos of the injuries, we might be able to request an emergency placement for Riley. He turned to Tessa. That could apply to you as well. She blinked. Me too. If you're willing to back up their account and give your own statement, then yes, you could also be removed from that environment. Tessa chewed her lip, clearly torn. What about our other sister, my twin? She asked. She can be included in the report, Dr. Pierce said. They'll send someone to check on her. For the first time in days, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we weren't trapped anymore. Like there might be a way out that didn't involve running. What about Liam? Riley asked, her voice small. They're saying he kidnapped me. Dr. Pierce frowned, his eyes turning to me. That's where things get tricky. You're legally an adult, Liam. So foster care or protective placement doesn't apply to you. And yes, technically, you took a minor without permission. So I could be arrested, I said. For saving her? Not if we move smartly, he said. We need to get in front of this. That means filing the CPS report immediately, and you voluntarily speaking to law enforcement, explaining the situation calmly and honestly. That's your best chance. The idea of walking into a police station, of possibly being handcuffed while Riley was pulled away again, made my chest seize. But I knew he was right. We couldn't keep running forever. What about our parents? Tessa asked in a quiet voice. If the investigation supports the abuse claims, Dr. Pierce said, they could face criminal charges. At minimum, they'll lose custody during the investigation. I tried to imagine them actually being held accountable. It felt unreal. They'd always seemed untouchable, experts at looking like model parents to the outside world. As if reading my thoughts, Dr. Pierce added, they're going to push back hard, deny everything. And they'll keep trying to make you, Liam, look like the unstable one. He looked at each of us. Are you all ready for that fight? Riley gave a firm nod. Tessa hesitated, then exhaled. I'm done being scared, she said. I want this to stop. That afternoon, with Dr. Pierce guiding us, we officially filed the CPS report. He took photos of Riley's injuries, recorded detailed statements from all three of us, and made several calls to get things moving. He arranged for us to meet with a CPS worker named Beverly at the campus police station. I'll be there with you, he said. I'll make sure they hear you out. Walking to the station, I felt torn between two overwhelming emotions, fear and relief. For years, this pain had lived in secret, and now it was finally coming into the light. Whatever happened from here on out, at least we weren't hiding anymore. When we arrived, Beverly was already waiting for us. She was in her 40s, with kind but focused eyes, and she didn't waste time. She listened carefully as we repeated everything, glanced through Riley's photos, and jotted down page after page of notes. I'm going to request an emergency removal order for both Riley and Tessa, she said. And I'll have someone sent to check in on your sister at home, immediately. The officers at campus security, however, were less receptive. They listened, but I could tell they weren't fully buying it. One guy kept calling it a family disagreement, like we were just arguing over chores. We'll need to notify your parents, one of them told me. Let them know Riley's been found. My stomach clenched. You can't send her back there, I said quickly, doing my best to stay calm. She has visible injuries. There's a report on file now. CPS is involved. The officer looked over at Beverly, clearly unsure. She gave a firm nod. They won't be going back. Not today. They'll both be placed into emergency foster care while the investigation proceeds, Beverly told us, holding a stack of paperwork. Relief hit me like a wave, but it didn't last long. Another fear crept in right behind it. What about me? I asked. Am I being arrested? One of the officers sighed, clearly worn out. Not at this point. But don't leave town. This case is still open, and we may need to speak with you again. While we waited for the placement to be arranged, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Caleb. Mom and Dad know you went to the police. They're on their way. And they're furious. I showed the text to Beverly, who instantly alerted the officers nearby. They moved us to a private back room, tucked away from the front lobby, just in time. Through the glass window, I watched my parents' car screech into the parking lot. My dad marched in first, face locked in that cold, barely restrained fury I knew too well. My mom trailed behind him, already slipping into character, the worried, devastated mother. I need to see my daughters. I heard my father bark at the front desk. They've been missing for days. We've been out of our minds with worry. One of the officers led them down a separate hallway, away from us. Even through the walls, I could hear my mom turning on the waterworks. My son's always been unstable, she wailed. He's filled Riley's head with lies. She was never in danger. He's the danger. Beverly gave my hand a quick squeeze. This is normal, she said softly. In cases like this, abusers always try to shift blame. They attack the one speaking up. I nodded, but the knot in my stomach didn't loosen. They were just so believable. Polished. Rehearsed. They'd spent years perfecting this act, and now they were performing for the police like pros. After what felt like forever, Beverly returned. We found a temporary foster home that can take both girls, she said gently. Riley's grip tightened around my fingers. What about Liam? She asked. Can he stay with us? Beverly gave her an apologetic look. I'm sorry, sweetie. He's legally an adult. The foster system can only house minors. Tears welled up in Riley's eyes. But we need him. He's the only one who's ever kept us safe. You'll still get to see each other, Beverly promised. You just can't live in the same place for now. I pulled Riley into a tight hug, doing my best to stay calm for her sake. It's okay, I whispered. This won't be forever. This is just the first step in doing things the right way. As Beverly began escorting the girls out, an officer stepped into the room. His expression told me the news wasn't good. Your parents are pressing charges, he said. They've gone to the district attorney. They want to file for kidnapping. Beverly's head snapped toward him. That's absurd. He was protecting his sister from ongoing abuse. We have evidence. That's not for me to decide, the officer replied with a shrug. It's a legal matter now. But in the meantime, we'll need Liam to give a full statement. I watched as Riley and Tessa followed Beverly out of the room, glancing back at me with worry in their eyes. Then the door shut behind them, and I was alone. I sat in that cramped interview room for what felt like hours. The officer kept going in circles, rephrasing the same questions, trying to trap me in my words. Did you know what you did was illegal? Were you aware this could land you in jail? Do you understand your parents are just trying to protect their daughter? Protect her? I wanted to laugh or scream. Instead, I stayed quiet. Finally, Salvation walked through the door. Dr. Pierce returned, this time with a clean-cut man in a Navy suit who introduced himself as Stephen, one of the attorneys from the university's legal aid clinic. He barely glanced at the officer before saying, Liam won't be answering anything else without counsel present. The officer looked frustrated but relented. Once we were alone, Stephen leaned in. They're pushing hard for kidnapping charges, he said. But you have a strong basis for what's called a necessity defense. You had legitimate reason to believe your sister was in immediate danger. I nodded, feeling too drained to even react. What about Riley and Tessa? I asked. Are they okay? They're safe, Dr. Pierce assured me. Beverly placed them with a solid foster family. Somewhere secure. Your parents can't touch them. That gave me some peace. Not a lot, but some. Stephen suggested I avoid staying on campus, since my parents clearly knew all my usual hangouts. Without hesitation, Dr. Pierce offered up his guest room. It was probably breaking some university rule or 10, but I didn't care. I was grateful for any place I could just breathe. That night, I laid on the guest bed staring at the ceiling, completely unable to sleep. I kept checking my phone every few minutes, hoping for any word from the girls. Then, sometime around 3 a.m., a new message lit up my screen from a number I didn't recognize. It's Caleb. We need to talk. Just us. Alone. I almost didn't reply. Caleb had been our parents' loyal soldier for as long as I could remember, always obedient, always on their side. But something about that message made me pause. Why should I believe you? I texted back. His response came instantly. Because I'm done being their puppet. Meet me tomorrow at 10. The coffee shop on Elm. The next morning, I showed the conversation to Dr. Pierce. He didn't like it, thought it might be a setup, but agreed it was worth hearing out. He insisted on driving me there and staying close by, just in case things went south. When I walked into the cafe, the morning rush was in full swing. I spotted Caleb tucked into a booth by the window. He looked wrecked, his hair was a mess, eyes bloodshot, wearing the same clothes from the day before. You look like hell, I said as I slid into the seat across from him. He almost smiled. Yeah, well, it's been a week. I didn't waste time. Why am I here, Caleb? What do you want? He stared down into his coffee like he was searching for words at the bottom of the cup. I saw the photos, he said finally. Of Riley. What photos? The ones she took of the bruises. The CPS investigator showed them to me when they interviewed me yesterday. His voice cracked. Liam. I didn't know it was that bad. I swear. A part of me wanted to believe him. Another part wanted to walk out. You did know, I said flatly. You may not have seen every bruise, but you knew who our parents were. You just didn't care, not as long as it wasn't happening to you. He winced, like I'd hit a nerve. That's not fair, he said weakly. I was just a kid too. I didn't know what to do. I leaned in. You knew when I got beat for spilling juice. You knew when Riley got smacked for not turning on Tessa. You knew. And you stayed quiet. Then went downstairs to get praised for being the good son. Tears welled up in his eyes. I was just trying to survive. I almost got up and walked out right then. But something about the look on his face stopped me. He looked honest. For once. Then why are you here? I asked, my voice lower now. He took a deep breath. Because they're going to destroy you, Liam. They've already convinced half the family that you're mentally unstable. They're saying you brainwashed Riley. That you faked the abuse. Sounds about right. I'm not letting them do it. He pulled out his phone and handed it to me. I have proof. I saved everything. I scrolled through a series of text messages from our parents outlining their plan to smear me, regain custody of the girls, and deal with Riley once she was back. One from Dad read. She needs to learn a lesson she won't forget. My hands started to shake. There's more, Caleb said, and switched over to his voice memos. He hit play. It was our mother's voice. Clear as day. We just need to make Liam look crazy. No one listens to crazy people. We've been setting that up for years anyway. I stared at him. Why would you even record that? Because I finally saw them for what they are, he said, voice quiet. And I saw what I'd become by doing nothing. For the first time, I wasn't looking at the polished, perfect son they'd raised. I was looking at the real Caleb, scared, shaken, and human. Will you testify? I asked. If it comes to that? He nodded without hesitation. I'll do whatever it takes. I want Riley and Tessa to be safe. I want you to be safe. I texted Stephen, our legal aid attorney, immediately. He called back within minutes. This could change everything, he said. Those texts, the recording, they're huge. Things moved fast after that. The district attorney dropped the potential kidnapping case. CPS expanded the investigation, reaching out to teachers, neighbors, even distant family members. The case against our parents was gaining momentum. Tessa was doing well in foster care. She texted me every day, updates about school, her foster parents, how she was finally sleeping through the night for the first time in years. Riley, though, was still struggling. The trauma hadn't let go of her. She had nightmares, panic attacks. But at least now, she was safe. A week after that meeting, Caleb called again, his voice shaky. They know, he said. They know I gave you the messages and recording. Dad lost it. He tried to hit me. I got out before he could do worse. Get to Dr. Pierce's place, I told him. Now, when he showed up at the house, his cheek was red and swollen, already turning purple. Welcome to the club, I said, handing him an ice pack. He gave a dry laugh. Yeah, I deserve that. For all the times I stayed silent while he hurt you. The next day, we got the news. CPS had removed our youngest sister, Tessa's twin, from the house too. All four of us were finally out, safe, away from the people who had hurt us the most. It didn't feel real at first, like we were still waiting for the other shoe to drop. But our parents didn't let go quietly. They lawyered up with some high-priced defense attorney who tried to paint me as the mastermind behind a supposed conspiracy, the rebellious middle child who'd brainwashed his siblings into lying. They paraded in a lineup of extended family who swore my parents were model caregivers, that they'd never seen even a hint of abuse. But none of that mattered once the hard evidence came out. The photos of Riley's bruises. The audio recordings Caleb had collected. The matching testimonies from all four of us. Together, it created a picture that couldn't be denied, and more importantly, couldn't be spun. The dependency hearing was presided over by Judge Ramirez, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who didn't buy into theatrics. The moment my mother tried turning on the waterworks, sobbing about how much she missed her daughters, the judge stopped her cold. Gregory Walsh, she said firmly, I've reviewed every piece of evidence in this case. These are not the marks of discipline. What your daughter endured points to prolonged and extreme physical abuse. And just like that, my mother's crocodile tears dried up. The mask came off, and that cold, calculated look we all knew too well appeared. We gave them everything, she snapped. Everything. And this is how they repay us? With lies? Judge Ramirez didn't flinch. And that, she said, is exactly why your children are terrified of you. In the end, the court officially terminated our parents' legal rights to the twins. Since Caleb and I were already adults, The court couldn't remove us, but the judge still issued a restraining order. They weren't allowed to contact any of us again. We should have felt victorious, free. But what I felt was empty. A courtroom decision couldn't erase years of trauma. It didn't instantly undo the fear, the conditioning, the scars. That part? That was going to take time. The real work started after the ruling. We all began therapy, some one-on-one, some sessions together. Riley and Tessa remained in foster care for a while, but I visited them every week without fail. Caleb got a small apartment near campus and let me crash on his couch while I saved up for my own place. Bit by bit, we started learning what a real family could be. What safety felt like. What love without strings looked like. It wasn't easy. We all had our baggage. Riley still froze when someone raised their voice. Tessa apologized for things she didn't even need to say sorry for. Caleb carried guilt like it was stitched into his skin, especially for all the years he stood silently by. And me? I still had nights where I'd wake up in a sweat, heart pounding, convinced I had failed them all. But slowly, we were getting there. One breath, one day, one hard conversation at a time. 6 months after the court hearing, I got a message from Ethan, my old roommate. Dude, you need to see this. He sent me a link to a local news site. I clicked. My parents had moved to a small town 3 states away, reinventing themselves as the kind of loving couple whose children were stolen from them by an unfair system. They'd even begun applying to become foster parents again. But someone had recognized them from the National Registry of Adults with terminated parental rights. They'd reported them. And now, there they were, in the article, mugshots and all, charged with falsifying documents and trying to deceive the foster system. That evening, Caleb came by. I showed him the article. He read it silently, eyes scanning every word. Then he looked up at me. They're never going to change, are they? I shook my head. No, they won't. And that was the truth. But we had changed. We'd broken free. We were building something from the ashes, something new, something real. A family that wasn't built on fear or secrets or betrayal. Just last weekend, all 5 of us got together at Caleb's apartment. We ordered way too much pizza, played board games that made us laugh and yell and argue like normal siblings. For once, nobody was walking on eggshells. At one point, I looked around the room. Caleb on the floor trying to cheat at Monopoly, Tessa yelling at him, Riley giggling from the couch, and I felt it. Peace. Riley noticed me watching and came to sit beside me. What are you thinking? She asked softly. I wrapped my arm around her shoulder. Just that. We're going to be okay. She rested her head against me. Yeah, she said. We really are. It wasn't some fairy tale ending. We were still healing. Still hurting, some days more than others. But for the first time, I believed in the future. Not one defined by where we came from, but by what we were building together.